Mama's patiently waiting for me, excited to go for a walk. As you can see, we've got a decent amount of snow, and I have both my hands full. I need to be really careful because everything's icy. Just a couple of, look at her, she's so happy coming outside. Some geese. Just try to let them know that we're just friends. Floating around on a still day. There's the duck decoy, and the rest are alive. They're just floating around. Look at her waiting for me like a good girl. All right. She's getting the habit of stopping and checking in, which I appreciate, and glad to see her doing that. But here's the geese. So there's a bunch now. They're all heading out. Hi, guys. She came back. I'm gonna have to put my gloves on at one point. Usually when I get around this bend up here, the breeze from the north hits and it's pretty cold. Having some coffee that I didn't finish this morning. Amazingly, it's still warm, although I did get up late. This is actually one of the things that my father did give me that I really appreciate, and it actually works. It is a coffee mug that seems to be really well insulated by the company he worked with that did phytonutrition, called Manatech. He would like to talk about them a lot and all their patents for phytonutrition. Anyway, I haven't been sharing much, and I felt inspired today to share. I'm gonna see if we can make it down to the little bench here at the reserve, and maybe I'll get into it there a little bit more. The remains of one of the geese that floated in. It's amazing. Must be, I imagine seagulls must have picked that apart. I can't imagine that the geese would be cannibalizing themselves. It's very slippery. There's a lot of ice. I fell actually exactly 3 times, hit my left elbow each time, pretty hard. It's like easier to walk on the stones. You can really see these zebra mussels that are like razor sharp and will slice your feet right up. I literally grew up and had almost every year of my life I've spent time on this lake, which is another reason that it feels, or I have so many different mixed feelings being here, and what seems like saying goodbye or a closing chapter, not only in my life, but with whatever is happening in the world. Yeah, there's a good example of those zebra mussels. Just love the stillness and that water. Just like to share a little bit of it. Yeah, I'll get down to this bench and stop and put my gloves on and share what I felt inclined to share. I guess I can start talking now. Took a little nap today. My grandmother, my step-grandmother, I call it basically my grandmother, sent me a video. It was really moving. Beautiful testimony of a woman who was sharing how some people have come together to help those in need down in North Carolina after the flooding, and how there was a man that had lost like some kind of a weed, I don't know if it was a lawnmower or some type of I can't remember the details, but it was something to maintain his property, and it was like a $400 piece of equipment that was gone, and some people called up and paid for one at the local Ace Hardware, and they were kind of like, who's this person calling up, buying this $400 piece of lawn equipment for somebody? And it was an opportunity for her to talk and share about Messiah. And I'm a little surprised right now of how moved I am just talking about it, because it's not really the story itself, but it's talking about him. And I felt like in my channel, maybe I was talking a little bit too much about myself. I was trying to share my testimony, which is a pretty long story. I'm not great at brevity. And the real point of anything I share is ultimately to give glory to the Father, and also the Son, so to speak. So I saw this video of this woman today, and one of the first things I noticed was the amount of makeup that she had on her face, and that probably sounds judgmental, but I don't mean it that way. I recognize it probably represents a person that is insecure more than anything. But in the book of Hanuk or Enoch, it talks about where painting in women's faces comes from, and that came from the fallen ones, the seraphim angels that were called the Watchers, and they were the ones that taught men things that men weren't supposed to be taught necessarily, weren't ready for those things. And a lot of it was, I think, similar or parallel to what's happening today, and all this like alien technology that is being brought into the mainstream, and things are so much that's out there that people have no idea. When I was a child, I remember we would always have a Reader's Digest in our bathroom, and usually there was a Popular Mechanics magazine as well. And I remember being very struck by an article in the Popular Mechanic that said that the government was basically about 50 years ahead of the public when it came to technology. And I found that very odd. If the government was supposed to be for the people and by the people. But I didn't really think too much about it at the time. You can hear all the geese up here and see them. There's a lot out there. Let's see if we can zoom in. Oh, wrong way. There they are. Lots of babies out there. Where was I going with this? Technology, help me bring me back, Father. Anyway, maybe I'm digressing and getting too much on myself, but I like to communicate with clarity and be understood, and so that's why sometimes I share, maybe overshare. But I was saying that I've had taken kind of a break, and I've been dealing with a lot and really wanting my shares and my communication, my life to give him glory. And when I saw this video today, I think the chair's, it's up a ways still, but there's a little bench out here. My fingers are getting cold, so I'm looking forward to getting my gloves on. But so anyway, when I saw that video today, I felt inspired to respond and to also make a video, because what this woman was sharing was really beautiful, and it was effectively people showing love for one another. And that is really the heart of what the Torah is about. It's loving one another as father, as mother, which is this unconditional love for one another. It doesn't mean that our relationships don't have conditions, because clearly our relationships do have conditions, especially with Father. That's why he gave us the law. Look at him. I feel like it's Nature of Omaha or National Geographic Television. Oh yeah, my fingers are getting cold. So I watched this video and I was hit right away with two things. One, how good Father is. That he is love, he is truth, he is justice, he is righteousness, and those are the four pillars of creations, it says in the Psalms. The second thing was how so many people will acknowledge him, the Father, acknowledge the Word, even acknowledge Messiah with their mouths, but yet they give up the opportunity that Father gave us to be a light to the earth, which is to walk in the way, the path, the way, the Darak. And that is in the path of obeying him. And when we do this, Messiah says that we're like a city on a hill that can't be hidden in the darkness. And what hit me was how, out of all the 10 commands, really the one that's the most observable, I mean, there will be fruits in our lives when we honor those 10 commands. This is the ice I wiped down on last week, I think. We'll be fruitful in our lives, and we will bear light and be like the light when we obey the commands. But the one that's like outwardly and directly visible, there she is up in the hill, loving it, happy. The one that's outwardly visible, the outwardly observable, is Sabbath. You know, you might get a sense if a person honors their parent or honors the Father's word from their life. But if you're a liar, Let's turn this around. Actually, let's not. Let's just put my gloves on and you guys can enjoy the view instead of me. One glove on, one to go. Also, you can see the moon out there. Look at that. I was trying to zoom in, but it wasn't working with the glove on. But you can see it right in the dead center. I don't know why we call it the dead center, but right smack in the middle is a full moon, almost full moon or full moon. Beautiful, right in front of me. Pretty wild. With all these geese in my gloves, sorry about that. So it's interesting because the commands are repeated a couple different times in scripture, but I believe it's Deuteronomy that actually says that the Sabbath is a sign between him and Israel forever. And that word forever is a pretty powerful statement. And the point that I felt led to make was how when we tell people, hey, I'm not going to do my own pleasure on Saturdays on the seventh day, and I'm not just going to pick and choose a day and call it my Sabbath, which is what some of my family has literally said, well, my Sabbath is this day, or my Sabbath is for the apostate, my Sabbath is Jesus. No, it's the day that he literally rested on and blessed forever. And when you think about it, the fact that the Catholic Church has made Sabbath the first day of the week, well, on the first day of the week, he created the light, but man was not even created. So why would he bless and partake the day as sacred and holy that man didn't even exist, human didn't even exist? Well, that would ring true to me to a system that ultimately is against man. And the system that's against man is the system that's against the Most High. And that's called the anti-Messiah, or often called anti-Christ system. And that includes false gospels. That includes anything that's false, because there is no falsehood in the kingdom of heaven. No liar shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. And I was moved by this video of people coming together and caring for one another, which is how we should be living daily in our lives anyway. This is literally the opportunity for us to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth, is to love one another. And people who think that they love the Father, and they often refer to him as God, which is fortune in Hebrew. That's a name that's been hidden in the English translations of the Bible. In Isaiah 65:11, it says, you set a table for God and manai, which is very phonetically similar to money. Manai. Isn't it interesting that it's on our dollar bill, which we call our money, that it says, in God we trust? And most people think that that means that it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, or Jacob. But it's not. It's literally fortune. In fortune they trust. And that's what they worship. And that's what they love, is money. And the word says that you cannot serve two masters. We cannot serve two masters. We can only serve one. And the sign that we serve our master is that we honor his word, we honor his law, we honor his sovereignty, and we do what he says out of love. It says that the fear or reverence of YHUH is the beginning of Hakama, or wisdom. But also it says that that fear or reverence of YHUH is to hate lawlessness or to hate evil. Well, that word lawlessness, let's look at that or contemplate that word. Lawlessness. Lawless is the root. Law is the deeper root. It's a 3-letter word. Lawless. Well, the righteous are called lawful. So literally in the words themselves, if we were paying attention, it's telling us that we're either full of the law or we're less or empty of the law. And in Matthew, Messiah says that there will be many who have come to him and have done great things in his name. But he will say, "Depart from me, you workers of iniquity, you lawless. I know you not." And those people, it says, did even great things in his name. And yet they're rejected. And this is profound. It's a profound warning to those that are paying attention. But unfortunately, I don't think many are paying attention. Hello. Hello. Are you a happy girl? Are you a happy girl? Yes, you are. Look at that little butt. Boing, 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 boing. Oh, I miss my children. I read a poem today that my grandmother sent me about a person floating through life like a cloud, and they see this patch of flowers, and this flower, it's so beautiful. And that patch of flowers was my children in my life. And not having them in my life is like being a floating cloud without a patch of flowers so often. And it's interesting because in my life, most of, I would say, my lawlessness was actually pursuing women, pursuing the pleasure of a woman or the desire of connecting with one, having a relationship. I never just really wanted a physical relationship, but I wanted, deeper connection that included physical relationship and connection, but also spiritual. And I can see in my life where if I'm called to be alone, how that makes sense, given that I would say I idolized women or a woman for so long in my life. And I had a conversation recently with someone that who I really love and care about, and I said, I could see I can't I can't dedicate myself to you, which is what I think most women really want, is a man to dedicate themselves to that woman. I said, I can't do that because I'm dedicated to him. But if you are dedicated to him and want to dedicate yourself to me as his servant, then I could receive that. And certainly I believe, I could use that. I feel a need for that companionship, for that warmth. And I certainly have desire for it. Ultimately, I still deep down desire family, children, even more children. And I know that might sound crazy in these times that we're living in, but I just have to trust that desire comes from my Father and it's in his hands, and I'm not going to worry about it. I just know that I long for my children. I know that I've always saw myself, deep down as a family man. When I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, I recognized, I really didn't know if that was being called to that. And I recognized if I just kind of put it in my spirit that if I got a scholarship for college, that it would mean that, I wasn't meant to pursue life as a Navy SEAL, which I didn't see as being a family man. So I did get a scholarship and went to college, got my degree, and got married. And then unfortunately, I can't say I regret the marriage, because I do have 2 children, and as hard as it is to be separated from them, I would never want to undo them. I would never want to, not have them exist. But sadly, if they don't determine to honor the Father, it's better that they didn't exist than to live lawlessly and to lose the gift of life. And I'm concerned for both of them. I have no idea how they're living their lives, but the simple fact that they don't acknowledge or honor me as their father is a sad sign that there's something really not right. And I take responsibility in that. I didn't raise them right. I tried to. But I raised them on kindness, honesty, and gratitude, and that's not enough. That's not the Darak, YHUH, the straight path. Anyway, I really just wanted to stop and talk about how touch. Good touch. Good girl. You staying warm? You staying warm? You better run around. Yeah. Yeah. It's so important for us to do what he says, to hear and to do. And his word, people that say that we don't follow the letter of the law, we follow the spirit of the law, they're liars. They're liars. You cannot separate the word and the spirit. They have the same source. Psalms 19, 7 through 14 talks about how the law is perfect and it brings light to the eyes. It brings wisdom to the naive. It's called perfect. And in Matthew, he says that not one punctuation of the law shall pass away, but heaven and earth pass away. And heaven and earth are still here. And I don't know that they'll ever pass away in the sense of be gone. I believe they might be renewed. There's talk about a new heaven and earth, but it's not clear if that's something that's brand new in the sense of a whole new creation, or if it's a renewed, rectified kingdom, so to speak, where the evil and the lawless are removed from the earth, because it says that the humble or the meek shall inherit the earth. So I just want to encourage anybody that might be hearing this of how important it is for us to recognize who we serve and for our choices to acknowledge that. And if you say that you love him, if you say you love God, I would offer Elohim. If you say you love Jesus, I would offer Yahushua. He came in his Father's name, our Father's name. If you say that you love the Father, YHUH Tsavoth, then it's important that we honor what he has commanded us to honor, what he's given us, not to limit us, not as something that is a burden, but something that guides us through life and tells us how to bring heaven to earth. The law is not a burden. The law is a recipe for establishing heaven on earth. And those that think it's a burden are trying to pursue it outside of love. Those that say that we are to not live by the letter of the law, are you saying that it's okay to lay with a woman during her uncleanness in the time of her month? Are you saying that we shouldn't observe the Sabbath? Are you saying that it's okay to murder, that it's okay to commit adultery? All these, of course not. Well, how do those things? How can we say that? Of course not. There's 3 geese up here that's caught my eye. How can we say of course not to those things and then deny where we learn that those things are not right? It's in his law. The only part of the law that we are unable to perform is the Levitical law. But that's an aspect. That doesn't mean that we abandon what we can do. That's really silly. Of course we can't go and do sacrifices. We don't have a temple. And yet the Bible talks about how we're to deal with sin, that we must confess it, that we must turn from it, we must reject it, and he says that when we are faithful to confess our sin, he is faithful to forgive us our sin and to wash us clean and white as snow. And there we go. to wash us white as snow. So we should receive that gift and to be joyful in it, the opportunity to be washed, the opportunity to be a new creation, the opportunity to receive a stone, a white stone with a new name. And that stone called white stone, what I've come to learn that means is white represents purity. And in Hebrew, a stone is Evan or Avon. It's the letter Aleph, the letter Beth, and the letter Nun. And I have a amazing testimony on standing in a PCH, on the PCH in California, right out in the heart of or on the peripheral border, not the heart, but the edge of these fires happened. And seeing that the clerk's name was Evan and recognizing that was a Hebrew name, and then asking, hey, do you know what your name means? And I wonder what the root is. And when I looked close at that word, Evan, I knew that the first two letters were Aleph, Beth, and then Nun. So I'm like, well, that's a three-letter word. I wonder, well, what is the root? And then I realized, AB or AV, Aleph, Beth, is Av, father, Ave. And then that Beth, Nun, is Ban, son. And I was like, wow, a stone is a father and a son sharing a common beeth. Well, what's a beeth? What's a bee? It's a house. So literally, a white stone to me represents being granted, or being a stone, being secured in the Father and the Son and the house of truth. Good girl. She's so happy. It makes me happy seeing her happy out here just sniffing and running around. When she keeps moving, she doesn't get cold. But sometimes she came in today and had been out potty and was just shaking and trembling. I don't know if it was because she smelled the snack or it seemed like she was cold and her body temperature was low. She's not built for the cold, and neither am I. This is really pretty. Dropped my phone. Let's try to just capture a little moment. Father, I just pray that you would bless this message. Bless it to minister to hearts that are seeking you. Bless it to convict hearts that are wayward from you. Bless it to inspire those who don't have regard for your word. To give it regard, Father. And bless us in this time to see the fulfillment of your promise to pour out your Spirit upon the earth. We need you, Father. We need you. We long for you. At least I know I do. And I know the pain of a father that's been rejected by his children. And I really believe that in a sense that's one of the reasons that the Father has allowed me to walk this path, is to know him. And not just in word and experience, or word and spirit, but in experience as well. To really know what it's like to love your children and to have them utterly reject you and to treat you as if you don't exist, as if you're dead. And that's largely how we treat the Heavenly Father, as if he doesn't exist. And there's people, maybe there's people that will hear this and they might feel sensitive that Father is patriarchal and doesn't acknowledge Mother. I don't know what will happen with this video, but what I would say is that the Word says that when a man leaves, that a man is to leave his mother and father, that he should cleave to his woman, that the two should be called one, Achad. Well, a lot of people are confused by language, and I'll take this opportunity to explain that this is also when Messiah, a son, who's called the son of Elohim, and it was said that he was appointed to be called first-begotten, whereas YSHAR'AL, or commonly known as Israel, is called his first-born son. And this was what Father told Masha to say to the Pharaoh, let go of my firstborn son. And when he didn't, he struck all the firstborn that didn't have the blood over the door. Over the what? Over the door. Well, a doorway in Hebrew is a Dalath. Some might say a Dalet, but Dalath. And what's interesting is that that blood went over the door, and he said, I am the door. No man comes to the Father but through me. Well, why did he say that? Because what Messiah was the full embodiment of the living word of the Father, that his word is life. His word, he literally created everything in and through and by his word. And that word was what Messiah was full of, and the spirit of wisdom. In Isaiah, I think it's Isaiah 12, it talks about the 7 spirits that will be over Messiah. And so when he says like that he is the way, he's not elevating himself to the same level as the Father. In fact, I believe it's Paul that wrote that Elohim is the head of Messiah, Messiah is the head of man, and man is the head of woman. And that shows order and headship shows authority, that there's authority over Messiah. But he is appointed, like Joseph was appointed, to have power and authority over the kingdom. And yet Pharaoh said, you have my power and my authority, but in my throne. And so Yusuf had full power and authority to act as Pharaoh in the kingdom of Egypt. And that is the power and authority that's granted to Messiah as Yusuf, who was the rightful heir of our father Yaakov's kingdom. Hey, good girl. You ready to go back? Let's go. I think that it's good for both of us to get out here and do this walk. I literally was in bed all day. I've been tired. I slept quite a bit today, so that was good. I have a court hearing this Thursday with my stepmother, who I'm just really curious to see how it's going to come. This is going to come to fruition. It's actually not over the estate, but she's, I don't have a way to leave right now, especially with my things here. And I'll spare you all the details, but so she's like filed a petition to evict me from the cottage that I was told would be my inheritance. And either way, that's a secondary issue, but she's literally denied me everything, including water here, my things, my dad's things that were meant for me, and that were even given to me before he even married her. It's kind of like a bad Disney movie. That's what it feels like. It's interesting how these Disney movies have always like an evil step parent. Something in that. Look at this beauty. Wow. There's that moon. So I just mentioned that because I know some people have been kind of, I know at least a few people have mentioned they've been kind of following my story for a while. And I just wanted to share that update that should be having some movement, some type of an understanding of what to expect and how to bring some resolution to a situation where I haven't been able to, you can't negotiate or make an agreement or come to an understanding with someone that's not even willing to talk to you. And the situation certainly can't be resolved without communication, without talking. And I've been willing and wanting that even since my father was alive. Just wanted to be here to help my dad, and she didn't want that. She didn't want me here helping my dad. She didn't want me around. Didn't understand why. But now I do. Didn't want him potentially allocating any of his equity to me. She feels entitled to have everything that was his and all of it, even though she didn't honor her vows as a wife and was only with him for a third of his life. And my dad testified to me that the most stressful thing in his life was being in the same house as this woman, and yet he felt he was honoring the father by honoring a vow. And unfortunately, when we make an unholy vow, something that goes against the word of the Father, often we have to reject that to be restored. And in the book of Ezra, the men that had taken Babylonian wives had to separate themselves from those Babylonian women and children in order to be part of rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem. And I've often wondered if that's why my children have left my life like this. It's painful to think and to accept that separation might be permanent, that separation might be final. But my children and my daughter especially has testified that I didn't even raise my voice to them when they were children and never was abusive. And yet they can't say the same thing about their mom. And yet they have cleaved to her, so to speak, and rejected me. Such a bizarre, strange thing. So, in conclusion, I will stop and turn this camera around. Hopefully my glasses aren't too fogged up. In conclusion, lawlessness is to be less or without the law. The reverence of YHUH is to hate lawlessness. He gave us his law out of love. It's a recipe for us to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. I challenge anyone to point out one thing in the law that if they honored it would be contrary to life, contrary to the kingdom of heaven. And I pray that if you're seeing this video, that you are honoring the Sabbath, that you are guarding it, not doing your own pleasure, but doing what he said, which is to rest, to worship, to not engage in business. We shouldn't be traveling. He says not even to carry a load outside of our, in or out of our abode, so to speak. It's a very serious thing for him. So I pray that this is a message that blesses you. I hope that you're blessed by all this beauty. And blessings in the name of YHUH Tsavoth, King and Sovereign of all that is. I pray that he shows you his mercy, his favor, and that he shines his face upon you and yours. I come in his name and in his son's name. Who I am proud to confess myself as a bond servant to him. He saved my life with the message that he not only gave but lived. And who am I to not give my life back completely to him, no matter what the cost? And sometimes that cost may seem great, it may be lonely, but I wouldn't exist apart from him. So blessings in the name of the Father and the Son and the Rock. Hallelujah.